What's going on, guys? So I have another update. Looks like that Salt Typhoon attack, the Chinese state actors that hacked into all of the United States major telecom systems using the backdoors that were forced into the networks from Kalia, Lawful Intercept, or as I called it, Awful Intercept. Well, it looks like it hasn't ended there. It looks like now they've penetrated the National Guard, all thanks to backdoors that were required in the telecom system by law. So we're going to be taking a look at a couple articles here today I have up here, and we're just going to be taking a breeze through some of this stuff today. So it even says here, quote, going forward, all U.S. forces must now assume their networks are compromised and will be degraded, says a former National Guard service member. So that's what you get when you put a backdoor in the system. And that, I guess, is also why those who had these third-party listening backdoors they wanted to add to the end-to-end encrypted messengers, they all wanted government and police and military to be exempt from those laws that are being pushed out right now. Those same laws. It just shows they don't trust these backdoors themselves, and we can see it in real time. This article comes to us from July 16th, so just a few days ago this article came out, and it looks like there are several of these Chinese state actors, from Volt to Salt Typhoon and other similar names like Panda, and there's some other ones out there. And it looks like some have different ways of operating, and it appears that they are using security contractors as front groups in order to justify some of their actions. And it looks like they actually jumped from the compromise of these AT&T, Verizon, various telecom networks into getting further access. It looks like also one of them was arrested, according to this article from July 14th. So a Chinese hacker belonging allegedly to Salt Typhoon was arrested in Italy on a warrant. Now, this member, Zhu Zawei, is accused of being a member of the team that breached the University of Texas. So apparently they were hacking into networks associated with vaccine development and COVID in general. I wonder what they were after. Maybe various evidence, or maybe studies, maybe science, trying to get ahead through theft. That's one way to look at it. It looks like he's telling the authorities his account was hacked. So he's trying to get out of it, it sounds like, that he was not involved, but the real perpetrator must have hacked his accounts. Well, maybe that happened, or maybe it didn't. But they did arrest this individual, this alleged suspect of Salt Typhoon, and it talks about the revealing of breaching the security of these university networks, and they even have the communications showing that he reported to his superiors, mentioning that he compromised emails of specific virologists and immunologists at the University of Texas. So definitely targeted for these virology studies and whatever information they may have had that may have been of interest to the CCP. Now, they previously had breached the U.S. Treasury and cybersecurity vendors. There's also, of course, an interest in zero-day development, as is usually the case in everything in cybersecurity, of course, because some zero days will get you a few $1 million a piece. And in this case, it gets you a reward from your government if you're working at this particular organization in China. So that's the end of that article. But let's take a closer look at this whole latest case and how this could have happened. So they haven't been forthcoming on all of the details into the compromise of the National Guard. Now, another thing about the National Guard is they work closely with fusion centers. So they also work with the states. So it's not only a threat to the National Guard itself, but because of the way these networks are oriented, it could be threatening the state governments as well, because the National Guards are applied by the states themselves and work within these fusion centers, according to various sources. So it talks about how they track this since 2024, which I also did a video on this, when they compromised all of the largest telecom providers in the US using the backdoors that were required by the government. So they also were able to exfiltrate from the U.S. Army National Guard administrative credentials, interstate data traffic from all 50 states and at least 4 U.S. territories, likely related to their integration into the fusion centers and intelligence sharing that happens. Now, it also isn't an isolated attack. It is a coordinated campaign, and it also has implications for critical infrastructure such as gas, water, power, transportation, supply chain, all of that. So here are the phases in the way it was believed that this happened. So the DHS report that was given to us through a Freedom of Information Act request looks like it came through multiple phases. So first, there was surveillance and positioning. So this advanced persistent threat exploited multiple critical vulnerabilities across leased IP addresses to breach those backbone telecom providers using the backdoors. That's right, I'm going to keep saying it. But yes, it is the government-mandated backdoors that gave them the access to begin with. It just shows, once again, that a backdoor is always going to be a backdoor, no matter how you title it. You want to call it Lawful Intercept? Be my guest. It's still going to be a backdoor, and it's still going to provide access to those who are able to infiltrate, possibly even those who work with this. They could even have people who work in the actual implementation of these backdoors. There is no telling how deep it could go. So when you add a door to access, you're inevitably going to add massive risk, and that is why so many of these people in government that are pushing these laws want to be exempt from backdoors in end-to-end encryption. So phase 2, they pivot into the National Guard from the compromise of the telecom systems to gain administration credentials, so users, logins, keys, network diagrams. They got geographic maps of state operations, including some things that weren't public at all, of course. Personal identifiable information of service members, cybersecurity staff, data exchanged with National Guard units in every single state and those 4 territories we mentioned earlier. And it does appear that it is anticipated that there will be fusion center targeting. As I had mentioned, the National Guard is also embedded into these state fusion centers of intelligence sharing, all of this type of thing. When you have these networks, they talk a little too much to each other. Well, you're also adding risk there. And that's another reason why things such as the Doge project, to have all of these sensitive American databases talking to each other and communicating back and forth, there is good reason that these databases were not able to access one another. I mean, it is a security risk. Anytime you have one agency sharing intelligence with another, you're adding risk to the agency that is providing that intelligence. And so just the same, anytime you have computer networks, what they're sharing with one another, if one of them gets compromised, if it's being shared from another place, of course you're compromising more than just that one location if you're getting intelligence from other locations. Now, of course, they're using AI and different things. And if you think this is just going to be used to surveil and track immigrants, I am sorry, but I just don't buy that. I don't know a single system of surveillance that hasn't been used to amplify other types of Americans being tracked, and all of the technology that came out to us saying it was there to stop drugs, Technology is advancing, shifting from geographical borders to digital virtual ones, hence surveillance. So they're starting out because the public will accept border security surveillance. They will accept the biometric tracking as mentioned here, the improved sensor technologies, and this is just more cost effective, as it says here, more cost effective. You know, you can't just build a wall. So those who think they're going to build a wall, the wall they're building is a surveillance dragnet. That is the wall that it appears that most of the funding is actually going into. So if you really think this is going to stop people from crossing the border, I mean, those people could very easily just visit the US and overstay. So I don't know. I'm just not a big supporter of increasing the surveillance when I know it is inevitably going to be used against the population in some form. I'm sorry, just got to tell it how it is. This is my opinion, by the way. Just take it as an opinion. I just can see what's coming. So, of course, they use all this fear propaganda, such as the fear of fentanyl and all of that, even though, you know, with billions of dollars at stake, there's going to be somebody who's going to take the risk. Unfortunately, that's just the way it goes when you have a black market, when you actually create the black market by prohibition laws, which creates the black market that makes it profitable, that also causes the actual motivation for people to take those horrible risks, which actually creates the violence because, you know, people are facing life sentences. Of course, there's going to be violence protecting these horrible black markets, which are just... I just see it. I feel like I see it for what it is, but I know, like I said, just opinion. It's an unwinnable war. That's the main thing. You can't win a war on drugs. You just can't win it. It's unfortunate, but you can't win it. I mean, we've all lost people in our lives to horrible things like this, but you're not going to win a war that is unwinnable. Even the United Nations has said 99% of these substances get through. If you're barely scratching 1%, what makes you think that you can actually keep your freedom as a whole, as a population in the world? How can you keep your freedom and massively increase surveillance to the point where they actually can stop this stuff? You can't. You can't have everything. You got to make a choice. Either you care about freedom or you care about, you'd rather live in a totalitarian police state where they're able to better control everyone's movement, everything in their pockets, everything else. It's pretty obvious to me. So with this mega bill that recently passed, they were trying to massively expand biometric surveillance, and they did give funding, of course, to the border, and guaranteed that money is going to go to more surveillance. Things like this autonomous surveillance tower. Sounds like fun, right? So it's an AI-powered autonomous surveillance tower that's going to monitor everything on the border. You should also be aware that your rights are not quite the same in the border area. So people may not realize that their rights aren't quite the same. In fact, there is a certain mile range where you're considered border territory. So I think it's like 100 miles in the border. Don't quote me on that. But surrounding the entire country's border, 100 miles in or so, maybe 200, I can't remember the exact figure, but your rights are the same as at the border. So essentially you are a border area. That also goes for the shores. And this autonomous surveillance drone, just another way they can create a totalitarian police state. Let's take a look at what this thing looks like. Oh, nice. Totalitarian surveillance drone. And as I covered a couple years ago, we have drones now with tasers on them. And they're talking about how we need to put these in schools, you know, to prevent those events that happen in schools. You know, if a kid's maybe fighting, maybe the taser drone can go after them. That one wasn't mentioned, but you know what type of situation that happens in US schools that they're talking about. And so, you know, how far are we willing to take this? Are we willing to live under a microscope? Are we willing to give up every single bit of freedom of movement, of autonomy, of free speech? Because, of course, these private companies that gather the data, they can monetize that data, and in public places you have no expectation of privacy. So, of course, who knows what kind of things may be created. You could see companies come out with privatized credit scores based on a lot of this information. So, not a fan, but did want to talk about it today. And as I mentioned, this master database to surveil and track immigrants, I just feel like it's going to be expanded. These autonomous surveillance tower systems, these aren't going to stay just on the border. You think this company is going to quit once they have the border covered? I doubt it. I would bet against that. If I was a betting person, I would put my money saying they're definitely going to try and get these towers all over the country and throughout the world, of course. I mean, why wouldn't they? That's profit. We're talking about a company that is interested in making money. And this is the kind of future that they are manufacturing. So what do you think, guys? Let me know in the comments. What do you think about these backdoors in our telecom systems that have led up all the way to the military being compromised, all because they thought they could take the easy route to law enforcement, to fighting quote-unquote terror, which, of course, we know Stalin also had a war on terror, but he used it to go after his adversaries, his perceived enemies. Anyways, these systems can be weaponized against the population if the wrong person gets in power. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think it's a good idea to add backdoors into everything to help law enforcement have an easier job? Or maybe not an easier job when you consider that it's led to compromising everything from these law enforcement portals to the U.S. military at this point? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you have any other information on this, I'd love to hear your thoughts below. And I'll be back later with a video soon covering surveillance, tracking, how to protect your security, and privacy.